Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 547, and today's date is December 20th, 2014, and the title of this episode is the Current Economic Collapse News Brief for this Saturday. Now, we understand Europe is in a lot of trouble. A lot of the countries have a huge amount of debt. People are unemployed. Youth unemployment is skyrocketing. And we see Spain is out there, and they're going to pretty much abolish rent controls. And this is going to affect about 20,000 small businesses, and they may close. Up to 20,000 small Spanish businesses could be forced to close when rent controls are abolished at the end of the month. About 60% of the 200,000 affected businesses have been able to negotiate a rise of around 35%. And we can see there's a lot of businesses that will not be able to make it. And we're seeing that a lot of the rents are going to go up by thousands of euros, and it is not negotiable, and a lot of businesses are going to go out of business. And again, this might not be a very good thing for the country. The country is struggling right now, just like Italy, just like Portugal, just like Greece and Cyprus. And we can see everything they're doing here is not helping, and this will most likely make it a lot worse in Spain. Now, I talk about the Baltic Dry Index quite a bit, and we are seeing that the Baltic Dry Index has fallen for 21 straight days, tumbling around 40% since Thanksgiving. This is the biggest collapse in the trade indicator since records began 28 years ago. What does this tell us? It tells us that we are headed towards something which I would say is a collapse. When will it be? We don't know, but we know that this number is hovering around 800 or so. And when we had that the recession back in 2008, right after that, it went down to 647 or so. We are getting very, very close, and each couple of days, it continues to drop. And again, we have to remember the Baltic Dry Index is the raw material. Speculators can't adjust for it. Governments can't adjust these numbers. And this is the raw materials that factories use. So this is a great indicator. And again, everything that we're looking at, real estate, retail, unemployment, and I'm not talking about the government numbers, they are all showing signs that, yes, we are headed towards this incredible economic collapse. And we understand all of this since 2008 has been taped together, glued together, and they're creating bubbles. And I say they, the central bankers, U.S. government, and they're trying to contain this by continually creating new taxes, by creating new laws, trying to bring in more revenue into the government, and they're doing everything and anything they possibly can. And we see that it's falling apart in the Middle East. It is not getting better whatsoever. And we see there are new laws all around the world, even here in the United States, that are limiting rights of the people. I mean, look at Spain. We understand that they have an anti-protest law. And right now, 30 cities in Spain have expressed their anger over the so-called gag legislation that criminalizes social protest, and demonstrators say curbs their freedom of expression. And these countries understand they need to get rid of anyone that can protest, anyone that can open their mouth, because they realize when the collapse comes, people are going to be out there, they're going to be angry, and guess what? I don't think these laws are going to stop anyone. Maybe for the time being, but when people get pissed off enough and when they're pushed back into a corner, the only way they have to go is forward, and this is what we're going to see. The slogan of the movement is gag law. Why do they want to shut us up? And we can see that several groups of citizens have spearheaded We Are Not Criminals, and they are protesting right now that there's no reason to have these laws. And they're going to be very peaceful. Hopefully there's no agent provocateurs in any of these protests, and we'll have to watch that to see what happens. Now, there is a report out there saying that the FBI mishandles evidence throughout the United States. FBI agents all over the United States have mishandled, wrongly labeled, and even lost evidence pertaining to criminal investigations. This is coming from a critical internal review, and the Bureau is even storing more weapons and drugs than it has documented. A majority of the errors identified were due in large part of human error, attributable to lack of training and program management oversight. Out of the 41,000 pieces of evidence reviewed by auditors, there were errors with almost half of them. And we have to remember, they're the ones who investigated the anthrax, are investigating the current cyber attack on Sony. And how do we actually believe them? Actually, if we really look at this, everywhere the FBI goes, it seems like there's some type of terrorist attack once they're involved. It seems like there's some type of cyber attack or attack using anthrax or things like that. And a congressional inquiry has found that the Federal Bureau of Investigations used flawed methods to investigate the anthrax attacks of 2001. The 77-page report from the Government Accountability Office cast doubt on the FBI's evidence that purportedly linked the nation's first bioterrorist attack to Army biodefense researcher Bruce E. Ivins. And guess what? There is no proof that it actually linked to him. And right now they're looking into this and they're finding out that, he might have not been guilty, and most likely he was not, but he did kill himself and before he was able to go to trial or anything like that, and he's no longer around, so this really doesn't help him. But it shows that the FBI kind of really doesn't investigate anything, and of course, as we know and as we can see, that, a lot of times they create the instances. They're there pushing the agenda of the government. Now we see Obama authorizes an economic embargo on Russia's Crimea. U.S. President Obama has authorized sanctions against individuals and entities operating in Russia's Crimea. So basically, he's placing more sanctions on Russia because Crimea is part of Russia. Obama has issued an executive order that prohibits the exports of goods, technology, or services to Crimea and prohibits the imports of goods. And we can see right now the executive order also authorizes the Secretary of the Treasury to impose sanctions on individuals and entities operating in Crimea. And we can see right now that they're going to continually place sanctions on Russia. They will not stop. Right now, they're trying to push and use these sanctions and the drop of oil prices against Russia, and they're trying to destroy the economy. And right now, Russia is trying to survive this, and we can see right now that they are pushing war with all of this. And we have to remember, an economic war will lead to a world war. And we can see in Ukraine, and there are reports that the Ukrainian government, the United States, the FBI, the CIA, they are pretty much preparing for some type of false flag. And we're starting to see a little evidence of what might occur. We see that the Ukrainian law enforcers are out there and they're saying that they foiled a terrorist plot to cause mass casualties in the capital of Kiev. The country's counterintelligence agency alleged a Ukrainian woman living in rebel-held Lugansk was found 800 kilometers away in Kiev with a bomb in her bag. They alleged the attack had likely been orchestrated by Russian military intelligence. Ukraine's security service did not reveal how the woman came to their attention. So we can see already they're pushing this. And the question we have to ask is, why would Russia do this at this point? Putin was out there pushing for a peace deal. He laid out a plan. They went to Minsk. They agreed on this plan about a ceasefire and having peace. He's only talked about peace. Why would then he place a bomb in a woman's bag, send her to Kiev to blow up in Kiev? To start the war again? No. Basically what's been happening is the Kiev government, the United States, the United States has been passing laws where it allows them to bring in lethal weapons. It allows them to fund and train the Ukrainian army because they are preparing for a huge, huge offensive. Now, they can't just start attacking because what would be the reason? Because right now they're in a ceasefire. So they have to create this false flag to make it look like it's coming from the southeastern section and from Russia. And you can see right now, this is exactly what they're doing. And the question is U.S. and NATO preparing to wage war on Russia? Several military initiatives directed against the Russian Federation have been launched in the last few months, including the conduct of war games in Eastern Europe, military training, and the deployment of special forces in Ukraine. These military initiatives are led in coordination with media propaganda and a program of economic terrorism consisting of disruptive economic sanctions, the freeze of monetary and trade transactions, the fraudulent manipulation of oil and currency markets. The media campaign consists in presenting war as a humanitarian undertaking. The end game is to basically weaken the Russian Federation, undermine its institutions, impoverish its population. Meanwhile, the U.S. Congress has pretty much passed enabling legislation which provides a de facto green light to President Obama to declare war on Russia. Reports have also confirmed that Washington is contemplating regime change. And of course, this is coming out of Russia. They see what's going on. And right now, Putin is out there saying that they have pretty much squashed certain terrorism plots inside Russia. The U.S. NATO military exercises conducted in recent months in Eastern Europe and the Baltic states were pretty much directed at Russia. Obama signed the Ukraine Freedom Support Act, which allocates up to about $350 million in military aid to Ukraine in support of its military campaign against the southeastern section of Ukraine. U.S. Ambassador Jeffrey Pratt says that himself and the Assistant Secretary of State of Victoria Nuland plays a key role in coordination with the activities of ODC Ukraine. The activities of ODC, broadly defined, consist in the following. Number one, the deployment of U.S. military personnel in Ukraine is implemented under the so-called Joint Contact Team Program Ukraine, the JCTP. Number two, the military training program is implemented under the auspices of the International Military Education and Training. Under this program, Ukraine military personnel are sent to the U.S. for training. Number three, the sale and procurement of weapons is under the auspices of Foreign Military Sales, Foreign Military Financing. The FMF program assists the Ukrainian military in conducting defense reform by providing funds for Ukraine to purchase U.S. military equipment and services. Number four, support to Ukraine's National Guard is implemented through the California-Ukraine State Partnership Program, while the SPP mandate is to promote democracy, free market economies, and military reform. In practice, the SPP is used to channel support as well as special forces and military advisors to Ukraine. So you tell me, are they preparing for something really big? Well, it sure does look like it. Now, out in the Middle East, what do we see? We see that the U.S. okayed about 175 tanks to Iraq, deal worth about $2.4 billion. And, of course, those are going to be all brought into the Iraq region. And I'm just wondering, is the Islamic State going to capture these tanks and then use them inside Syria? And I wouldn't doubt this. I would say yes, most likely they will, and all of a sudden you'll see reports in the corporate media, the Islamic State captured the tanks that were sold to Iraq and now they're driving them into Syria, and this is why the United States needs to put boots on the ground. Now it looks like SAS hit squad sent to Iraq to hunt down ISIS jihadists after ISIS is learning how to avoid airstrikes. Up to 60 SAS fighters are heading to Iraq to hunt down Islamic State leaders because now they're avoiding airstrikes. Now we can see they're paving the road here. They're showing us that this is why we need to put boots on the ground, because the Islamic State is out there. They know when the raids are coming. They know how to avoid them, and the only way to get these people are to put boots on the ground, and they need to go after these people. And we see already the Pentagon has approved sending not 1,000 but 1,300 troops to Iraq. The U.S. Department of Defense says they went ahead, they approved it. 1,300 soldiers are going into Iraq next month. And you can see right now, this is definitely mission creep. This is what they are doing. They are slowly bringing them in. They already have a division headquarters set up in Iraq, and this is for an all-out war in Syria. This is what they're setting it up for, and eventually this will go hot very soon. Now, the U.S. is putting out a travel warning because of the terrorist threat inside Australia. The travel alert comes a few days after the hostage attack in Sydney. The U.S. government issued worldwide travel alert warning the U.S. citizens of possible terrorist attacks and remind them to be vigilant, according to the website of the U.S. Department of State. And they're saying, know your area, understand that these attacks can come out of nowhere. There is no advance warning whatsoever, so just be vigilant. And we can see right now, this is all set up. It's fear, to put fear into people, to show that, yes, there is terrorism around the world, and we have to take away more of your rights. And eventually what's going to happen is we will be going to war with these terrorists. We will be going to war with North Korea. We will be going to war with Russia and China and many other nations. You can see how they've been building upon this for a very long time, and now we're headed towards the end game of where this is going to go live. Now, the U.S., because of this whole cyber attack on Sony, of course, the United States government, the FBI, Obama is all out there saying it is North Korea, and we're starting to look at this and say, something, I think North Korea had absolutely nothing to do with this whatsoever. It looks like the U.S. government central bankers jumped on the bandwagon of this cyber attack. They're using it to push certain agendas, which I discussed in other reports. And right now, the White House is considering relisting North Korea as a state sponsor of terrorism after what happened with Sony. So we can see they're going right back on the list of terrorists. And you have to remember, they do have a bill floating around inside of Congress right now, which will expand the terrorist list. It's going to go from Al-Qaeda to the Islamic State to Boko Haram to North Korea. They're going to add all of this on there, and they will be able to use this to go after North Korea. Now, North Korea is continually out there saying, listen, we had nothing to do with this whatsoever. And right now, they're saying, listen, they are proposing a joint investigation with the United States to find out who really attacked Sony Pictures. And, of course, with this, they're saying, well, if the United States doesn't join up with North Korea, there are going to be grave consequences. Well, this is propaganda because we know what the United States is going to say, and the White House has already rejected North Korea's offer for a joint investigation into the allegations it was responsible for hacking Sony Pictures. The FBI made it clear, we are confident, even though we pretty much messed up all the other investigations with anthrax, all the other evidence, half of it was wrong. We are very confident at this point in time that it is from North Korea because we traced one IP address right outside of North Korea, so it has to be them. It makes no sense whatsoever because if you look at the messages coming through, it sounds like it's disgruntled employees of Sony. It's an inside job, and of course they're not looking at that whatsoever. They're using this as propaganda, and North Korea is out there saying that they can prove they're not behind the hack without doing anything, because look how the FBI handles all their cases. And some computer experts still express doubts whether North Korea was actually behind any of these attacks. And at this point, I think that the U.S. government, the central bankers, they're doing all of this for their agendas. Now, Obama is out there, and he is saying that Sony did the wrong thing when it backed down and pulled the interview from all the theaters. And we can see right now they are putting pressure on Sony to put it back in the theaters. And you have to remember, the Guardians of Peace, the people who actually hacked Sony, their threat is to blow up movie theaters. And it seems that Washington right now is trying to push Sony into putting this into the theaters. Now, do they want bombings to happen across the nation in movie theaters? And they could use this as the false flag event where they can say, see, North Korea hacked. Now they're bombing the movie theaters, and now we can go to war with them. And we can see from everything, all the propaganda that's out there, that, this was a dry run, the next hit is going to be a power grid. And as we know, they are definitely preparing for a false flag event. They're getting ready to bring down the power grid. I mean, of course, Janet Napolitano, when she was leaving DHS, she said it's not if, but when the banking system's hit. Not if, but when the power grid is hit. The government officials have been warning this over and over, and you could see they built up a roster now of those actors that could be responsible. Now it's North Korea, now it's Syria, the Islamic State, China, and Russia. Amazing. All the same players. And of course, Obama is out there, and he's pushing the latest agenda. And this is just one of them. There are many. And he's saying it is time to pass the cybersecurity bill. Obama said the attack should serve as a wake-up call to Congress and prompt lawmakers in Washington to get serious about implementing cybersecurity legislation. This is only the latest example of the need for serious legislation to improve the sharing of private information, your information, from companies to the federal government, and it will not hold these companies liable for sharing of this information. And of course, there's a lot more that goes into the cybersecurity bill. Basically, it's a stepping stone to take control of the internet, and this is exactly what they want to do. Senator Feinstein, who wrote CISA, she is out there saying we must pass an information sharing bill as quickly as possible before the next cyber hit. And we can see they're pushing their agenda. They had these bills ready. They were written up. They were sitting in the Senate. They're just waiting for them to be passed. All they needed was some type of an event, and they created one. Now we're going to have to see how far they're going to take this, because as we know, the entire economy is falling apart. They need to get this war going. And even if they do get it going with North Korea, guess who's behind them? China. It will eventually lead to North Korea, to Russia. And we could see how they're planning this, how they're trying to maneuver and set this up. And we're going to have to watch this very carefully, because as we know, this entire system is coming down, and they're trying to push an event as hard as they possibly can. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.